The consumer analytics team provides quantitative market intelligence that guides strategic business decisions. We explain market trends, predict how consumers will react to innovations, and recommend strategies for thriving in a changing business environment. We welcome any direct comments at jennifer.kent@parksassociates.com. Retailers, service providers, and device manufacturers are expanding the market of technology solutions that help seniors live safely and well in their homes. Our new research, Senior Living Technology for Safety and Independence, analyzes the existing and anticipated independent living needs among people ages 65 and older, as well as their family caregivers. It explores seniors' use of technology, attitudes towards and use of PERS and telehealth solutions, and tests interest and likelihood to buy selected solutions and services, including those enabled by smart home technologies and products. Key questions addressed include the following. What is the market size and characteristics for family caregiving solutions? What are the drivers and barriers of solution adoption? Which channels do consumers most prefer acquiring solutions from? What features and functionalities do family caregivers look for in solutions? How does the independent seniors market differ from the family caregiver market? How are seniors approaching the telehealth and connected health device markets? Our analysts are constantly studying this market and provide regular updates on the consumer healthcare market, including service features, key service differentiators, device adoption, pricing and business models, updates on existing players, and the impact on the caregiver market. To subscribe or request more information, please contact us at sales@parksassociates.com.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Smart Spaces event. This conference series focuses in on the MDU space, looking at apartments, hospitality, and community living. The focus of today's event is property technology and its evolution, specifically looking at the senior living market. As a reminder, this series of virtual events is also available on demand after the event, so feel free to re-listen. We are very excited today to share some of Parks Associates' own research in this area, taking a look at how seniors are engaging with and demanding smart technologies in their own homes. For our visionary spotlight, we have here with us today John Reinhardt with the National Institute on Aging and Sherry Rose, CEO of Thrive Center, two leaders in this space, to hear about the work they're doing, the changes and opportunities for technology in this space, and some of the barriers to investments in senior technology and how these are being overcome. We'll end today's session with a panel discussion featuring Elizabeth Anderson from the Council on Aging of Southern California, Dr. Eric Luster from Movement Interactive, Devan Gupta of IN2L plus LifeLoop, and Aparna Pujar of Zemply. Before we get started, a special thank you to our sponsors for helping to make smart spaces possible. A special thanks to our platinum sponsors, ADT Multifamily, Arise, Cox Communities, Connectivity Standards Alliance, NICE, and Rapid Response Monitoring. To our research sponsors, Nibio and Ventiva. To our event sponsors, Calix, Cooktalk Safety, and UV Passport. And to all of our other sponsors as well, including Homebase, Xfinity Communities, Blink, Aquana, 11 Software, and LiftMaster. So, the topic of today, of course, is senior living and property technologies, where these two areas intersect and what's going on in this space. I'm going to take the next 10 minutes or so to share some of Parks Associates' own research in this area. This draws from two major studies we did in this past year. First, Senior Living Technology for Safety and Independence, which looked at both senior and family caregiver adoption of technologies and solutions for independent living. And also a study we did in the MDU space, looking at smart apartments, connectivity, and services. Through our research in these areas, we've come upon some key findings that are very important to everyone operating in this space. First and foremost, the MDU market is undergoing a radical transformation. The COVID-19 pandemic forced many companies to rethink the way they were operating, making changes if they wanted to stay in business. The multifamily housing market, composed of companies that have historically been reluctant to take on unproven technology, began investigating and deploying all sorts of operational technologies, borrowing from both the hospitality industry and single-family housing. We're now seeing heavy interest and pretty much across the board in access control platforms, smart thermostats, and water leak detectors. Solutions that lower costs for properties, streamline time-consuming manual processes, and help to mitigate incidents like minor leaks before they become major catastrophes. We're also seeing properties, many on the luxury end, increasingly making use of smart technologies to create a lifestyle for their tenants, using these technologies to offer tenants a lifestyle of convenience, comfort, and control. Of course, when we are thinking about technology as a resident amenity, we want to make sure that we select the proper solutions in order to make the most out of our investments. This means identifying and meeting the demands and expectations of current and prospective residents. Resident demands, of course, are going to be different from resident to resident, depending on where a person lives, the demographics involved, and them can sometimes be very different. Resident demands, the resident's demand for amenities is going to be somewhat different from a luxury high-rise compared to a studio efficiency. Making this issue more complex, what is seen as a standard continues to evolve. As the market moves forward, so do customer preferences and expectations. One of the concerns we've been hearing from decision makers on the ownership and operations side is that they're worried that some amenities might be alienating or a turnoff for prospective residents, or at least something that might not move the needle forward. We've seen again and again, or heard again and again, that seniors aren't tech adopters. They don't own smartphones, they don't want to have smart devices, so on and so forth. In many ways, this is a misconception. Over the past decade, technology adoption has grown dramatically among the 65-plus population. Since 2013, we have seen adoption rates of common technologies double or even triple along this segment of the population. As of 2023, a majority of seniors own and use smartphones. More than half own and use a smart TV. We've also seen fairly dramatic growth rates in smart home product adoption and smart watch adoption as well, increasing to almost a third of seniors and 1 in 5 respectively. Today's seniors are much more tech adept than those seniors of yesteryear. But what impact does this have on preferences for home amenities among seniors? We do see that preferences for amenities do differ among consumers. They differ by preferred lifestyle, level of technological comfort, and by generation. Younger generations, we found, are more interested in amenities in general, while older consumers are more focused on a handful of amenities that they find to be valuable. Some amenities have very broad appeal across demographics. Insulation and soundproofing are a much for pretty much everyone. And everyone likes the idea of low-cost internet service available at move-in. Property-provided smart devices specifically haven't been a big priority as an amenity for the 65+, especially compared to younger generations. On the priority list for seniors, it's not terribly high, ranking somewhere between EV charging access, desired by roughly 1 in 5, and office space, desired by around 1 in 10. However, we do see this as an area where marketing and messaging matters a lot. When we asked seniors about the value of smart device use cases in their home, almost 2/3 of our survey respondents said that they found at least one of our tested smart device use cases to be valuable. In their own home, not in general. Seniors liked the idea of being alerted about their home safety and security issues and being able to check to see who is outside the door. From 16% to 60% is quite the jump, and it speaks to the importance of education and messaging and being able to get your meaning across. Of course, talking about senior living and senior communities, there is a very wide spectrum of independence and needs, going from the completely independent to those who need significant levels of professional assistance. We've just spent the past few minutes talking about the folks on the far left side of this graphic, those who live either entirely or largely independently. They are the ones who are most interested in amenities and the most likely to make use of them, whether they live in a single family home, a community with an HOA, apartment complex, or 55 plus retirement community. As you go along to the right side of these graphic, priorities do change. We see, of course, a increased need among these types of communities as well for operational technologies. Many of them struggle with high costs, manual and inefficient processes, and staff turnover. There is a large value in introducing technology for operational improvements. Companies benefit from digitalizing and automating some low-hanging fruit. Simple but time-consuming tasks that take up valuable resources. Much like the larger MDU market, these properties also benefit from using technology to reduce or eliminate costly adverse events, such as water leaks turning into floods, of course, but also unattended stoves causing fires, potential crimes, and eliminating unnecessary energy usage. Of course, it is vital for properties and developers of solutions to incorporate the on-the-ground perspective to ensure that solutions fit staff needs, work well in different workflows, and are usable. Senior housing is overall a complex area. It lives at the intersection of property management and independent living. Depending on the type of housing, it may incorporate solutions designed for MDUs, hospitality, or even health facilities, including life plan communities, CCRCs, and skilled nursing. In summation, we are seeing technology adoption growing in senior living communities. Today, seniors are more tech adept than seniors in the past, making use of smartphones and smart TVs, and increasingly engaging with more and more smart devices as well. We see smart device use cases resonate with them, but they do need to be marketed and messaged appropriately, and designed to be accessible for seniors into the future. Beyond amenities, properties are benefiting heavily from using smart tech in their operations, both in ways that draw on MDU and the hospitality market, but also looking at CCRCs and the developments there. Up next, we have our Visionary Spotlight conversation, moderated by Parks Associates' own Dr. Jennifer Kent, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with that.
Thank you, Kristen, for that wonderful introduction to this great topic, all focused around today senior living, senior resident needs, and the particular needs of multifamily type properties that are senior living communities and across that spectrum of all the different types of communities that includes. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research with Parks Associates, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by two leaders really in this space who have some really unique positions where they get a chance to work with a lot of the companies that are working in this space, helping them bring their products to market, test products, work with investors and try and find investment. I'm so pleased to welcome both John and Sherry today. So John Reinhardt is the Executive in Residence Advisor with NIA, the National Institute on Aging, and Sherry Rose is the CEO of Thrive Center. Hi, John. Hi, Sherry. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, Jennifer. Thanks for having us.
I'd love to start off with just really talking a little bit more about your roles and what your organizations do, because I think both of your organizations are so interesting in how you work with companies and what your roles are there. So, John, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the National Institute on Aging, but then also what your role is there.
Sure. So I'm a serial entrepreneur in health tech and digital and longevity economy solutions. And 2 years ago, I was approached by NIA through Sherry's recommendation that the National Institute on Aging was going to look to help commercialize some of their research-based awardee grant companies. And so I always thought of NIA kind of like NIH with therapeutics and medical devices. But NIH has 27 divisions. The National Institute on Aging is one of them. Our division awards $150 million annually in grants for research called SBIR grants. These awardee companies are typically very seasoned scientists and leaders that have formed an idea, and these are all for-profit ventures. And so my role is to be an advisor to the portfolio. We have about 145 active companies at any one time. They do a variety of different innovations and solutions. And they get, I advise on, I always call it shortening the gestation cycle of commercialization, but basically ensuring the business model and viability of their solution, not just the science, is sound. And it's a great opportunity.
So excited to dive in and dig in a little more and unpack a lot of that, what that means. I imagine there's a lot of different business models that are coming before you about what might work and what might not in different scenarios. But Sherry, tell us a little bit more about the Thrive Center.
Well, actually, John and I are really co-founders of the Thrive Center. We had a concept of how can you build out a center that really accelerates innovation in aging, but make it immersive, take the fear out of technology for the adults who walk through here, and then engage a lot of partnerships. So what we do here, we look at a lot of the companies that come out of NIA, also the AARP Tech Collaborative, a lot of accelerators that are working with these companies. What's here on the floor is commercially available, and we make it accessible to a lot of students who are looking to go into geriatrics and aging care, and we're trying to recruit them because of the workforce shortage. And so we have a lot of fun here, and so we have a lot of technologies I'm sure we'll get into and we'll talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think it's so interesting that both of you are in positions and in organizations that you're really tasked with almost a partnership model, right? Where you're really working with a lot of companies in this space. I'd love to start with actually understanding a little bit better what have been maybe some of the biggest barriers traditionally to investment in technologies that benefit seniors and senior living communities. John, I don't know if you want to start and then share.
Sure, that's great. So I think the key element about aging is it's kind of multifaceted, right? So we hear social determinants of health, we hear dimensions of wellness, but when you usually sell to a consumer, you have the user is the buyer, and the buyer consumes and uses the item. In healthcare, we have this artificial interest, right? So we have this dynamic of quality living where you want to live well. And I love the term well span, not lifespan, because we want to live life years that we live well, not just live a lot of life years. But we also have this clinical component. And I always say good sick care is part of living well, but you want to live well. You don't necessarily just want good sick care. So when you merge quality of life and quality of care together, you end up with this misunderstanding of which way you're selling and to who are you selling. For instance, if you have something that's reimbursable by insurance, even if it's Medicare Advantage or regular commercial insurance, then you also have somewhere there's an influence. It could be an adult child, it could be a physician, but then the user is not necessarily the direct buyer or the direct payer of the item. So I think most businesses or models in this fail to understand the revenue models. They fail to understand the nuances between the acuity level of cares. You have on one side long-term care, then you have skilled nursing, then you get into memory care and hospice. But on the other side, you have independent living and assisted living, everything in between. But the issue is those have cognitive, physical, and spiritual dynamics of the person in those phases of life. And it's not just about an age, it's about really a phase of their life. And I think people misunderstand and don't fully absorb when they try to go to market those dynamics. And there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, one of the things that Kristen presented before we started was this misconception that seniors don't use technology, which is really untrue. And also, of course, seniors are that's a word that includes this bucket of an enormous number of people across all different ages and their own segments within there and different personalities. Have you seen this sort of stigma start to change among the companies that you're working with? Acknowledging that seniors may be more open to technology than others think.
We absolutely see it because we do a lot of focus groups here. And as we're talking also to senior living communities, what we're telling them is you have to prepare for the baby boomers. I am a baby boomer. I had the first cell phone. Technology is not new to me. It's not new to any of my friends. And so I think what we have to realize is the day we enter into a senior living community, we're going to have expectations of being able to use our smart devices that we're currently using in our home today. But then I also look at, I have two daughters. They may be shopping for me. Where I have expectations, they have demands. They know nothing other than the connections through social media and smart devices. So we have to prepare for the baby boomers, but I'll quickly address 90-year-olds. As we do focus groups in here, we actually had a 98-year-old gentleman that participated in a focus group around a technology that was launched out of Temple University here at Thrive. And we put him into virtual reality. And he went through the whole focus group testing. He loved it. I think we give our older adults a sense of purpose. We should not ignore them at all because these technologies are beneficial to them. And they love working with the students and the entrepreneurs as well.
Maybe I could just add real quick. I think that was the point of the experiential immersive center, right? Who knows what it's like to be remote monitored or to have virtual reality in their house. And people, I think in our group, in our age group, and I speak for a broad group of over 50, I think we're discerning, educated investors of buying things. And I think it's not ubiquitous to us. We went on both sides. We went pre-computer. Now we're over here on the other side. It doesn't mean we're not comfortable. It means we just need a little more education, a little more understanding, and a little more show me. Innovation is an experiential, it's an experimental investment.
Yeah, and Jennifer, I think your question was around the challenges and barriers. And I agree totally with what John said, but I'm going to address it a little bit differently. I think as older adults, sometimes we become our own barrier. And we don't look at what's out there until there happens to be a crisis in our life, where maybe a parent has an incident where we have to start searching for how can we keep them at home? How can they maintain their independence in independent living? And we have created that space. I get asked all the time, why did you all create a physical center? And I always ask back, where do you go to see innovation in aging? And typically we don't search until we've had that crisis. So we become our own barrier. I think it's incumbent upon us now to look at what are those technologies out there that not only help us as we transition into more complex care, but what helps us live well and thrive. Thus, the name for the center is the Thrive Center.
Absolutely. So one of the examples that you gave us is that great example, that story of the 98-year-old gentleman who is trying virtual reality. Can you tell us some of the other technologies that you're seeing come through the Thrive Center?
Oh, lots of technologies. And of course, we share that on our website and through social media. But the product that we were working on, which, a lot of the products that we showcase here is around mobility. And the reason we do that is because it's a $50 billion healthcare cost here in the US. And we know that about 3 million enter ER every year based on falls. And we also know about 840,000 are hospitalized because of the severity of the fall. But I worry more about the falls that aren't reported, because we know that people fear their independence being taken away. So they may not tell their doctor, well, I've had a few falls. So what we do here, we take technologies like Virtue Sense and we assess people for gait and balance issues. And then we actually partner with OTs and PTs, the schools here in town, to where we help them on core body strengthening. We have a product in here called Juvent. It's a micro impact therapy. John's very familiar with that product. And what we like about it is they can stand on that, they get the impact therapy, and it's based on bone health. Bone health is very important. That's why we give DEXA bone scans to older adults to make sure that they're healthy and to look at risk of falls and fracture. And so we always look at those products around mobility, but then as they transition, we start to look at a lot of smart home technologies as well.
Yeah, a lot of the companies that might be attending today might fall into kind of that smart home sector. And what we see a lot is that focus on solving that same problem of the falls and the mobilities and activity levels, but maybe from a sensing point of view. So passive sensing around the house, maybe they're being a wearable, but also maybe they're not having to be a wearable, because then you have charging situations. And are people going to wear them all the time? Are both of you seeing some advancements in kind of home sensing or other smart applications of other smart home technologies?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just
Yes.
add that. Oh, go ahead, Sherry.
I was just going to say a technology that works today may not work tomorrow. So let's think about that. A watch that may be used for monitoring your vitals, like an Apple Watch, or GPS with geofencing for wandering for someone with dementia. Tomorrow, they may not wear it. So what we look at are those non-intrusive motion detections within the home, so that the family member or the physician can really watch. A lot of artificial intelligence that's being collected now to know they got up, to learn their patterns. What time do they get up every morning? And maybe one morning they're sleeping a lot later. So it gives us a lot of knowledge to know that maybe we need to check on that individual in the home. Recently, yesterday, I had a call with some CIOs in senior living, and this is a ring. And for that person that maybe has mobility issues, either through maybe stroke, Parkinson's, ALS, or just having had maybe a knee replacement, with this ring, you can actually point at switches in the house to control everything within the house. And so these are the types of devices, we talk about voice assistants. I think we're all used to the voice assistants, but what are those technologies that can keep us healthy where we are currently, and then all the way to smart toilet seats. We now have in our Thrive Center a smart toilet seat that is really analyzing our output, the contents, to put it bluntly. But it tells our doctors a lot about us. And so to think that you can detect a UTI, dehydration, colorectal cancer, spilling ketones, and they've even detected pancreatic cancer. But what happens is we present with maybe confusion or a fall, and that's when we know that we've had an issue. But what about these types of technologies that can catch us ahead of that incident, and we can treat it with antibiotics rather than more complex, serious issues? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. I mean, we've funded a number of the sectors that Sherry's talking about at NIA. We've given awards, and I think NIA calls itself America's Seed Fund because it's our taxpayer dollars coming from the federal apportionment. But the thing that I like and that's really opened my eyes as a serial entrepreneur is that's evidence based, just like we do with drugs and devices. All the what I call the lifestyle sciences innovations. So the lifestyle science innovations are not the life sciences. It's not about device. I mean, it's not about FDA approval or reimbursement. It's about lifestyle enhancement. All those have a tendency to be, as an entrepreneur, you think you got it. You MVP. You do a minimal viable product. You go do a pilot. But the key here is this is a really great opportunity to do clinical trials, and clinical trials with evidence and research. That's where we fund. All our companies do that. And so what we've seen, a lot of them is they think they have it, they pivot, they learn, they get consumer feedback, they do customer discovery. But you brought up a good one earlier in the research report about fires. So think about gas stoves and fires, and think about the safety issue and the property damage issue. But think about that sensor that can turn off the stove can also monitor gate, and think about all of a sudden they're turning off the stove from 5 times a week to 100 times a week, and what's happened there. But then the interesting part, I was talking to the CEO last night, he said, what does that mean? Maybe their meds changed. Maybe it wasn't dementia. Maybe it wasn't they had an incident or they fell. Maybe it was a medication titration issue where the medication caused behavioral change. So we had so many insights, but then this becomes this balance I keep talking about. What's the clinical relevance and the trending, the opportunity to share with real medical professionals versus the lifestyle intrusion of people that don't want to be necessarily micromanaged and monitored all the time? And it's a really good challenge. I mean, it's a really good challenge to work through, think through, and balance.
And one of the other challenges, John, back to you, is finding that business model and that funding model that's going to work, especially when we think about it for senior living communities and from a facility point of view. Some of the innovations that Sherry were talking about are so inspiring and incredible to think about, the detection of disease states and early, you'd be thinking that there would be some reimbursement through whether it's commercial or of course Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement, right? Can you talk at all about either the challenges or the opportunities, or if you see, how you're helping these companies work through figuring out how the business is going to be sustainable and make money over the long term? That's a key issue that we see hold things up in technology in the senior space.
Yeah, and there's definitely a moral component, right? Because we don't want to make this we want to make this relevant to all socioeconomic classes and folks. We don't want it to be an economic challenge or barrier. So the idea of there's a code for that, or the insurance payer. I think a lot of entrepreneurs think they're going to get a code and that's just going to send them on their way. I say that if you build a consumable solution that people will be willing to pay for, either their family members or their circles or themselves, then you never really worry about a business opportunity. But if you don't build an opportunity that fits that category, but there is this great shift in the payer insurance world to managed care, right? And managed care allows us to look at the risk rewards of both behavioral education, these whole implementations of opportunities that aren't necessarily coded solutions in the traditional sense, but they're supplemental benefits. That's how they're known. So the idea that if you have proof of something that works and a supplemental benefit can be added to a plan or coverage, then you get the best of both worlds. You get some people that will pay for it because that's their affordability quotient, but then you also get the coverage of the larger population, the Medicaid, the Medicare populace, and the dual eligible populace through these Advantage Plan benefits. And we have a lot of companies that work through that. But if you don't understand just those nuances right there, and you're only trying consumerism, then your marketing opportunity and the difficulty to market to, the number of consumers and their constituencies becomes overwhelming. And I think, where do you get educated and how do we share more education? At NIA, we do all kind of videos that are out there that we've done on these topics about introductions of the fundamentals of revenue models and longevity economy. Highly recommend you go out. We got great panel sessions taped out there. That's a really good one. I recommend they start with learning, and then we can work from there based on the evidence of what their model shows.
Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
I can tell you we are seeing a shift now. I agree on the Medicare Advantage plans that are starting to look at some of these solutions because they want to keep us healthy and at home and out of the hospital. But, I'm now getting requests from states. I had the state of Connecticut that actually reached out to me. I did a virtual tour of the Thrive Center, and they were looking at putting out an RFA so that they could focus on home and community-based services to care for their aging adults. We saw the state of New York purchase 900 LEQs. We have LEQ here. It's a social companion robot. They were looking at the rural areas of New York because of loneliness and isolation and the impact on dementia for that. And so we are seeing a shift now where the dollars that flow through the states, they're trying to take better care of their aging adults and look at the technologies that can really supplement and give them quality of life.
And I want to add one thing, Jennifer. The communities, the senior living communities, which is the focus of this talk, they have a vested interest when they do either risk-bearing arrangements or they do continuity of care retirement community arrangements, because they have this whole idea that this is an investment model. Somebody invests, becomes a part of the community, and then they have these monthly fees they built to personalize the services. But it behooves them to build packages of services that keep them healthy longer. So there is some built-in incentives for the senior living communities to add some of these technologies also, both from a workforce shortage standpoint, which Sherry mentioned, which is really the driving force of all of this, is there won't be an effective way to have enough caregivers across the board. So we're all caregivers. We may be professionally licensed caregivers, but we're all caregivers. So these technologies may help us across the board. And that may behoove it to be covered by the communities and the properties, because they want to keep them, in living well and having well span. And then, quite frankly, it's definitely an institutional need. You have to have internet. You have to have broadband. I always say infrastructure as a platform is a no-brainer. You have to have it. But at the end of the day, it becomes a marketing differential too. The choices are going to be lots of choices, and I think you have to differentiate yourself.
So we're getting some really great questions coming in from our attendees here. So I want to make sure I get a chance to speak to some of them. John, what you were just speaking about there also speaks to kind of the fundamental health of the long-term view of this market, in the sense that the demographics are such that we're getting older, right? There's not going to be enough caregivers. At the same time, in the tech space specifically, it's been a tough year, a lot of layoffs happening, really tough on startups to find funding. And so one of the questions that came in asked, and maybe John, I'll start with you, and then Sherry, if you want to add, can you share your views? How are startups handling the economy now with the cost of money, labor shortages, just the complexity of integrating new tech? Are we going to see a slowdown of new products? What are you seeing in both of your areas, John and then Sherry?
I would tell you that entrepreneurs are savvy and they find a way, right? That's the baseline. I would say the PPP loans and the retention credit loans kept a lot of the startups, moving forward, at least ones that had labor bases that received those credits. But I would tell you that, we've seen a huge uptick in SBIR grants. These are non-dilutive grants that can foster innovation. They started, we give away $150 million a year, but they started $500,000 in phase one and go to $2 to $4 million in phase two. So, you have to look at the creative ways. And then I think a lot of the government sectors and the state sectors are looking at grant programs likewise. And so I think, for instance, in senior living, skilled nursing especially, you got the Civil Monetary Penalty Fund grants. So CMP grants, that's a grant that's non-dilutive, that's collected from survey monies that are done for infractions. But I think the good news is when it's a period of challenge, the innovation becomes brilliant. And I think it takes that kind of brilliance. And maybe there's pivoting, and maybe there's combining or uh, new ways to do things. But the ones that'll hit in this market will be very sustainable, viable, and scalable. And I think that's good. I think that's a good discipline for any company.
Yeah, I can imagine the listeners getting their pencils out and writing down, okay, the name of that grant, the name of this grant. So that's great. They need to do their research and
Well,
understand
you
the
can
money
share
that's
my
available.
contact. Yeah, share my contact. We'll hook them up with the application process. There's sample apps on the web, all that. Yeah.
Sherry, how about you? What do you see about the impact of the economy and, again, that kind of cost of money, the labor shortages, and the impact on startups and new technologies coming out?
Well, there's no shortage of entrepreneurs. I will tell you, they're coming out with products. I could spend all day on the phone talking with the startup companies, but I think the key is finding where is there a need in the market. And if you approach that area, and then you also know, is it a saturated market that you're going into? Are there other products that compete with what you do? I think you'll see the money flow. The company I just mentioned that has the ring technology, within a matter of days, he had 4 investors. And he's part of Techstars. He's off and running. But they look at pilots too. So we think in terms of a lot of our senior living communities that are willing to take on that risk and de-risk for investors. They're willing to do those pilots. And, with letters of interest, the investors will invest in them if they know that there is a lot of senior living communities that are willing to pilot the technology and to adopt it.
Just one more, just quick comment. I'm going to do a silver hair moment here. But the Thrive Center has, 14 of the finest communities around the country that are tied to it and sponsor it, and they're ready to see what's coming out of it and work with it. And that's a real bit of it's a 501c3, it's nonprofit, and so it's not a for-profit entity. But the silver hair moment is this: if you're an entrepreneur, let me just give you one of my isms. My isms are that if you outthink, you don't have to outwork and you don't have to outspend. We forgot how to think well and plan well and strategize well and research well. And so all we do is outwork and outspend and think it's going to get us where we want to go. That is a falsehood. So stop, slow down, take a deep breath. If you're onto something, you're onto something. If you're not onto something, find out what you're onto or not, and then think it out well. Have the competition researched well. Those don't take a lot of time. They don't take a lot of money, but when they're done well, it's a great accelerator.
What a great words of advice. We only have a few minutes left, so we are about to close. But I did want to also mention, it sounds like with these leading senior communities that are engaged with the Thrive Center, for other properties that might be out there and who are attending today, if you look at who's engaged already with the Thrive Center, you might find peers in the senior property community who can share some lessons learned. Perhaps if they're not competitive in your specific market. But, it sounds like there's a real community that is coming together there at the Thrive Center and with your work. And then Sherry, I don't know if you have anything to share there from kind of the property point of view and those that are engaged with the center.
Yeah, absolutely. Just Friday, I had a CFO and a CEO fly in to see the Thrive Center and to look at some of the technologies. And then yesterday, we had a follow-up with their visioning committee. And their visioning committee, they had 5 residents that were actually on that committee, and they were the ones that asked me all the questions. So we offer that here. We do virtual tours. We open our doors. We do quarterly events with one of our biggest sponsors is CDW, who is really looking at this longevity economy and big in the hospital market. Now they're looking at senior living. And so in those quarterly events, we do trends and we talk about where technology is headed.
Fantastic. Well, maybe Sherry could close us out with some final words of wisdom for companies, big or small, who are investing today and building out technologies for seniors and for senior communities.
Yeah, I think feedback is everything, and which is why we focus on a lot of focus groups here. Right now I have 3 OT students assigned to me who are doing research around 3 products that I have here in the Thrive Center. And one is music and memory out in the community. One is around stroke recovery, neuro rehab. And this is a product that's come in from Switzerland. The other one is looking at, can we increase your endurance through virtual reality and therapy? So seek that feedback because that is extremely important for the people who will be using these technologies.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your time and your expertise and for all of the work that you're doing to advance these technologies and support companies and properties to really make the resident experience even better and improve outcomes. So thank you very much, and give us just a minute and then we'll be bringing our next set of panelists in.
The consumer analytics team provides quantitative market intelligence that guides strategic business decisions. We explain market trends, predict how consumers will react to innovations, and recommend strategies for thriving in a changing business environment. We welcome any direct comments at jennifer.kent@parksassociates.com. Retailers, service providers, and device manufacturers are expanding the market of technology solutions that help seniors live safely and well in their homes. Our new research, Senior Living Technology for Safety and Independence, analyzes the existing and anticipated independent living needs among people ages 65 and older, as well as their family caregivers. It explores seniors' use of technology, attitudes towards and use of PERS and telehealth solutions, and tests interest and likelihood to buy selected solutions and services, including those enabled by smart home technologies and products. Key questions addressed include the following. What is the market size and characteristics for family caregiving solutions? What are the drivers and barriers of solution adoption? Which channels do consumers most prefer acquiring solutions from? What features and functionalities do family caregivers look for in solutions? How does the independent seniors market differ from the family caregiver market? How are seniors approaching the telehealth and connected health device markets? Our analysts are constantly studying this market and provide regular updates on the consumer healthcare market, including service features, key service differentiators, device adoption, pricing and business models, updates on existing players, and the impact on the caregiver market. To subscribe or request more information, please contact us at sales@parksassociates.com.
Great. So we are back, and I'm so excited to welcome a variety, really, of different voices from across this ecosystem to talk about the new era of senior living and tech-enabled properties. I'm going to ask each of our great panelists today to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their organizations before we dive into our conversation. So we're going to start with Libby Anderson, who's the director of Orange County Ombudsman Program for the Council on Aging in Southern California. Hi, Libby. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I know ombudsman is a big word and it's hard to say, but yes, I am the director here out in Orange County. The ombudsman program advocates for people who live in long-term care, residents who are in skilled nursing as well as assisted living and the smaller board and care. And I'm certainly excited to be a part of this panel. So thank you.
Libby, thanks so much for being here. Next, we have Naveen Gupta, who's CEO of IN2L and LifeLoop. Naveen, please tell us a little bit about yourself and these organizations.
Jennifer, thank you for having me. I'm the CEO of IN2L plus LifeLoop, and we're a senior living technology company. Our vision essentially is to have a world where seniors live with purpose, passion, and joy, and we do that by creating solutions and platforms that provide resident engagement and operations. So really helping the residents, the staff, and the family members. And we have an incredible privilege. We touch almost 1 in 5, 1 in 6 seniors within the ecosystem, and we're incredibly excited to be part of this. So thank you for having us, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Very much looking forward to tapping into that knowledge, and the ability to see that many seniors across the nation, is really fantastic, and being in so many communities. Next up, I'm so pleased to welcome Dr. Eric Luster, who's the CEO of Movement Interactive. Dr. Luster, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Yeah, so I'm CEO of Movement Interactive. We're a wearable device company, and so we've developed a sensing technology for detecting falls. But with my community work, I am the chairman of the board of a senior living facility in Glendale, Arizona, where we've just completed a major renovation to aid the health and wellness of our seniors that are there. And with techniques that we use with Movement Interactive, we build person-centered design that has the voice of the resident right there integrated with technology.
Again, that great perspective. You're both on the technology side with the wearables as well as the property side through all of your work there on the board and the renovation. So thanks so much for joining us.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Next up, I'm so pleased to welcome Aparna Pujar, who's the founder and CEO of Zemply. Hi, Aparna. Tell us a little bit about Zemply.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure to meet my fellow participants here. Zemply is an AI and IoT sensor-based company based out of Silicon Valley, California. Zemply's purpose is to help the elderly live and age in their own homes for as long as they're able. We actually provide technology that transforms their existing living environments and converts them into caring environments. And we provide an assistive technology that actually monitors them for health, well-being, and safety. I'm really excited to be here and listening to what my other panelists are talking about.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you all for being here. Where I wanted to start today was really talking about, when we think about the multifamily space generally, it's a really interesting market because you have multiple stakeholders that you're serving. You have the developer of a property, you have the owner operator of the property management, staff on site, and then of course the resident and the resident point of view and what they need. And then when you apply that to senior communities in particular, there's a whole nother layer of specific needs and technologies. So I really want to start with, the real needs of senior residents and the properties and what they're really struggling with right now. Libby, I'd love to start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, certainly I think the concern that we have had as ombudsmen is the residents and the isolation that they have experienced, particularly over the last few years. And so we've certainly tried to make sure that these residents are listened to. And I think part of it too is the staff shortages that everyone throughout the long-term care world is experiencing. So that translates into what kind of care is being provided, that sort of thing. So it is a complex situation, I think, but for us, for ombudsmen, and we are the ones who advocate for residents and listen to their concerns, it is resident care as well as socialization.
Yeah, absolutely. During those, especially the real heightened years of the pandemic, that socialization really and isolation hitting seniors particularly hard, and that distance from loved ones being a really, really difficult challenge. Naveen, to you, how about you're working, like you said, you're touching so many different seniors, but then also through being integrated with all of these properties. What are the biggest challenges that the properties are facing right now?
Yeah, I think we could definitely take this in a lot of different directions, right? I think from an operator point of view, there's certainly occupancy, length of stay, driving profitable growth. But I'm going to come at it very similar to Libby. I think our passion at the heart of it is really the residents, really, and coming at it from, what are the challenges that they are currently facing or they are likely to face, and how do operators essentially begin to start thinking about that? So senior living is not monolithic, right? I mean, we're talking about a care continuum there. So I look at it really from an IL perspective first. So from an IL perspective, obviously there is the fastest growing demographics, and we can talk about it. But the seniors of today, and even for tomorrow, right, their viewpoint is going to be dramatically different, right? So it's not sort of the final chapter of life. There are many chapters to be written. There's an emphasis on well span versus just lifespan. They're much more digitally anchored as well. There is really an emphasis on wellness and preventative, right? Sort of healthcare versus just rehabilitative care. So you've got that within the IL space, and sort of within the AL space. If you think about it, it's really managing the ADLs, right? So obviously they are in AL for a reason, but they want to manage their chronic conditions, but they don't want that to be a barrier in their ability to really having an amazing aging experience. Within memory care, obviously, there's cognitive decline that's there. If you look at chronic conditions and the stratification of those chronic conditions, number one being blood pressure, number two is really Alzheimer's and dementia. So how do you really help that population within memory care? But at the heart of it, if you look at what's common to all of it, is things around risk of social isolation. And with social isolation, there's an acceleration of health issues that accompany it. That's a big factor. And then, as I said, there's a huge emphasis on the needs that are beginning to emerge around wellness. So all of it, from emotional, physical, spiritual, social, all of those aspects are going to be important. So to me, the problems that need to be solved really are around these dimensions, at the heart of which is really keeping the senior at the center.
That's really so much for a property to think about, and to plan for, right, and to serve really well this long continuum and the many layered set of needs that seniors have. Dr. Lester, I'd be interested to hear from you, thinking about it from a specific property's point of view. You just went through this big renovation and you're thinking about incorporating technology through that renovation. Can you tell us a little bit about that community, what it's struggling with, and how this renovation and incorporating technology is trying to get you where you want to go?
Yes, and that was a big undertaking, considering we have 150 residents and we kept all residents on site. And so we relocated residents, did the renovation, and moved them back into their apartments. But to this topic, we run about 3 to 4 research projects a year at Waymark Gardens in Glendale. And so one of the projects that we did was with the Edson School of Nursing and Innovation. And it was intended to look at falls and assess falls with the residents. But one major theme emerged, and that was from the qualitative part of the study. A lot of the residents were depressed. And so the board, the researchers, we were all a little surprised that theme emerged. And so that's when we started to address those needs. So at Waymark, when it comes to building the technologies for the residents, we actually do a lot of the qualitative research, and we implement the voice of our resident right into the technology.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, and the ability to talk right to the resident, like you're saying, and get that feedback, and there's learnings about their depression, maybe speaking to some of the isolation that Libby, brought up, as well as Naveen. How do you see technology helping solve that problem, or, some of the other problems that the property or the residents might be struggling with?
I want to
Oh, go ahead, Libby. Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in on something talking about social isolation, and certainly this really was heightened. This awareness of this was heightened during the pandemic. And one of the things that the Ombudsman program did, we received a grant, and we decided to embark on a project so that we would distribute 200 pets to various assisted living facilities and skilled nursing facilities. This is one. And he is able to engage with the resident. I'm going to turn him on. I didn't have him on because he can be a little bit of a loudmouth. There we go. But so he does meow, he does purr, he carries on. I don't know that you can see him very well, but the residents could pet him, do that kind of thing. And why we really went about doing this is because certainly during the pandemic, and when people couldn't go in to see the residents and whatnot, we thought, well, let's have something that they can interact with and that's going to respond to them. And a lot of our residents do suffer from dementia and other related cognitive issues. And so it didn't matter whether the pet was real or not. It just mattered that, there was something to kind of love on. So that's one of the things that we did.
Absolutely, that sense of companionship, and what a cutie! Thank you for bringing the cat today. Aparna, maybe over to you if you want to tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about how technology and the technology that you guys are working on can help address some of these very real pain points that exist for residents and for senior communities.
Yeah, I think I'll kind of add on to some of the points that Naveen and Eric and Libby had spoken about. I think where we stand in Zemply is we are trying to help the staff that's on the floors there that are firefighting and trying to do everything that they can to make the life easier for their residents. So from where we view technology is how to empower these caregivers with the necessary tools and information and insights that they can use to become a better caregiver, because technology can be used in many different ways. But the root of Zemply was that I created Zemply because I became a remote caregiver for my aging parents. And being a technologist, one of the things that I noticed in the industry was a severe shortage of tools that would actually help caregivers become better caregivers. Whether you're a family caregiver or you are a caregiver in a professional setting or an institutional setting. In many ways, I think the challenges that we see, whether it's in a home setting or in an institutional setting, is the infrastructure. And one of the ways we overcame that problem was to become a complete plug and play system, right? So we don't depend on the Wi-Fi capabilities in a facility. For example, we innovated in a way that our systems can go in and directly connect to a cellular tower. So the ground reality is, when you're working, and our product works in all settings, whether it's we can equip a living unit within a facility in an assisted living or memory care or independent living, or we can put our system in a home. And Zemply's mission has always been to allow the elderly the freedom and the lifestyle that they want to live with for as long as they're able. So WellSpan becomes a critical component of that. Maintaining longevity becomes a critical component of that. And to us, aging in place is very holistic. And to add on to the points that others made, we take care of health, we take care of their well-being, we take care of their safety. We also can extend to, make the traditional smart home part work, as in controlling their living environment, controlling the air quality inside the home. So what we want is what we call ourselves, we're the digital grab bars equivalent of that, which actually enables them to participate in this trend that is happening in our world today, which is the digital health and the digital ecosystem. And all of this is important. Where we focus on is tracking activity and behavior. And Zemply's core value proposition is to map these behavioral elements to health elements. Like, for example, when we are taking a blood glucose reading, we are able to now go back and longitudinally look at the patterns in which their nutrition or hydration has been happening in such a way that you can make a qualified judgment on whether a certain event that occurs is highly acute or not acute, and then and enable for some kind of a prevention or intervention that will help address that at a level where it doesn't become an ER visit, for example. So infrastructure obviously is still a challenge as much as I see it. I want senior living facilities to sort of look at that as a necessary thing to allow to enable in this world today. Because if there's a high degree of chance that if they don't, they're going to start becoming marginalized with what is coming from the digital health standpoint.
Yeah, quick follow-up for you there, Aparna, what you're talking about, that sort of inability for many facilities maybe to have the infrastructure there. So you've created this plug-and-play solution with cellular, so it really can just be offered, on top of things. Does that open an opportunity for a facility to offer it to residents as maybe an add-on, per unit, or would they be deploying it really across the whole facility for everyone? It just doesn't rely on their legacy infrastructure.
Great question, actually. I think so. Morally and ethically, we kind of want the facilities to provide this to everyone. I personally don't like the situation, where we're providing care for just one resident, not for the other. So we like the facility to offer this as a service to everyone. It's just makes sense, I think.
Okay, great. Naveen, maybe you can speak a little bit about the brass tacks when you get down to it. We know that legacy infrastructure, lack of infrastructure, is certainly a problem for different facilities or at different stages of their own connectivity and digitalization. How do you help properties, right, to either upgrade their infrastructure or plug in a way that makes sense operationally for them?
Yeah, I think I think most communities are spending right on upgrading the infrastructure. Like if you look at the tech spend across the board, you'll begin to see the categorization of it. And I think updating infrastructure is becoming a non-negotiable. I think the bigger factor is the spend on technology, right? And making sure that's proportional to your top line revenue. I think it's non-negotiable at this point where those operators, those organizations that will win disproportionately within the geographic regions, that they are leaning heavily towards technology and really using that as a lever to be able to provide better outcomes, right? Whether they're part of value-based systems or they're taking care of a resident population that might be even private pay. Jennifer, the bigger challenge when I think about our industry and technology and operators is this paradox of choices, and it's very similar to as you open up Netflix and you want to watch something, you may often get paralyzed because there are too many options out there. Very recently, we did a study of almost 300 organizations, 300 tech companies that are within the senior living space, and what we found was that there are almost 65% of them are simple sort of point-to-point solutions that are out there. And then you have another 15 to 20% that might have one or two sort of solutions within the portfolio. And then you have some of the larger plays. And what that means for communities and operators is that there is uncertainty about what technology do I really deploy? What technology can I partner with and that can drive the best outcomes that I need for my organizations? And I think that is a real challenge that, apart from the fundamentals of putting an infrastructure in place, is being able to find those trusted technology partners that can help you shape sort of your digital sort of evolution in order to fulfill the mission that you have and what you want to really achieve. And the second, I would say, related with that is this: the dollars remain constrained. I think this still remains, in one sense, a niche market. There are economic challenges. So coming out of COVID, there is this spend on infection control, for example, and obviously there is labor expenses, and that's sort of grown, right? Then you have insurance and food and energy, and you sort of build all of that in. And then when you look at the macro environmental factors, right, there is constraint on dollars that are really available, but really the bigger sort of encouragement to the segment and to the operators and communities are to make sure that you are having the right trusted partners that you're having conversations with, and B is that there is dollars that are being appropriately allocated so that you're not on the end of really being acquired, but you're really being on the end of really driving that innovation curve and providing that best outcome to the families, to the residents, and to the staff that are part of your community.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, and there's one thing that I would like to add to that. I think, and at the rate at which technology is evolving, right, to address very micro solutions and point solutions, as Naveen referred to, one of the things that we would like to see is for the providers, right, whether they're in a senior living setup or a home care setup, is to have this adaptive mindset, right? Because the amount of technology that's coming in is mind-boggling, and using the Netflix, I mean, it can lead to analysis paralysis, and there's a general, deer in the headlights. We see that a lot, and which one to go after. But I don't think there is a one solution that works for everyone. And in almost every setting that I've seen in senior living, having that aspect of building redundancy is not a bad idea, to build redundancy, because one piece of technology can solve one problem, and to provide a holistic technology solution, you actually need multiple technologies to work in cohesion. And the providers have to sort of take on this role of becoming very adaptive and open to trying things out, because the way the industry works today, there are a lot of startups chasing very few dollars, even on the investment side. But even, the market is capped, right? If you look at the entire macroeconomics, it's all of Medicare and Medicaid. And what we are looking at is, if the market is capped at that level, how do you figure out, what should work? And I think one of the things that the providers have to start looking at is, I need to start having a different approach to this. As more technology comes in, some of it will work, some of it won't, but being in that experimental mode can actually give them better benefits. Because technology has value. I mean, there are implementation issues, et cetera, that have to be addressed. But at the end of the day, it can deliver the results that they're looking for.
So great comments. I'm going to come to Dr. Lester next. I just wanted to mention that we actually have a polling question going to the audience right now. And it asks about, the key barriers in deploying technology in senior properties. And the number one answer was cost, right? That there's a limited number of dollars. They have to prioritize. Is it about infection control? Is it about spending on technology, right? And so, Dr. Lester, maybe love to hear your comments. I know you're about to jump in generally, but then also, you've had to make this decision yourself in your own property about where you spend the money. And there are a lot of options out there. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about how you're making those choices.
Yeah, and that's through collaboration. Many have been a little afraid of the word HUD, and we actually love the word HUD because we're an affordable property, and so we had a HUD 202 loan that we transitioned to a HUD 223F renovation loan, and so in the planning phases of that, we took our resident feedback and implemented innovative solutions right into that HUD vehicle. So we built a telemedicine solution to support our residents, and that was based on what we received from the residents. They were a part of what we call this sandwich generation. So about 50% of 40-year-old, 50-year-olds have seniors in their life that's 60 plus. And so our residents who are independent expressed to us that they were a little afraid to continue to call their kids to take them to appointments. And so we built this right into the facility as part of the renovation that we did, the HUD 223F. And the developers, they thought we were crazy, but COVID hit and I got calls and they said, wow, you guys were ahead of the curve. And so as part of that, I talk about collaboration. So we worked with Cox Communication, and instead of going up on telecommunication services, we actually leased the line as a site and were able to reduce the cost for our residents. So our residents now have high-speed internet. They have TV services that now we can provide content and training on the various technologies. So it was just a lot of planning and using the collaborations and using the resources that were available to make enhancements to the infrastructure. And so we knew we needed to build a business case around it, and it had to be sustainable. So with that said, even the telemedicine solution, we thought of every detail. We've selected primary care providers and brought the billing in-house so that we could take the burden off of our low-income residents and charge to Medicare and Medicaid and get certified. But now Miss Johnson, who's in Waymark Gardens, can now go and check her blood pressure every day as she wishes to do. So.
Let me ask, you actually anticipated a question that we got in from the audience, which is fantastic. And then Libby, I'm actually going to come to you here to see if you have any point of view on telemedicine visits and for seniors as well. But Dr. Lester, yes, somebody, one of our audience members asked, has anyone considered a teleporting doctor in the living room for a variety of old age conditions and to reduce healthcare disparity between rural and urban, have and have nots? And so it sounds like you were really already thinking there. And so it sounds like you, if I understood correctly, you already have a lot of the vital sign collecting elements there, like blood pressure, maybe weight. And then do you also have essentially virtual visits happening with a network of doctors, or they're also coming on site? Dr. Lester, just to you, back to you, just to clarify there.
Oh, yes. So all of the providers are remote, but at our site, we currently have a medical assistant that's there to aid the residents.
Got it.
And so we found out we were on the right track because at Movement Interactive, I didn't get to give my full background, but I'm a service-disabled veteran, and Movement Interactive is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. And so even if we extend past the senior living community, we are a part of the $1.03 billion effort with the largest healthcare provider in the world, which is the Veteran Administration, the Veteran Affairs. And that's the VA remote patient monitoring solution. And so this has helped validate what we're doing on site with our seniors as larger healthcare systems are going this route and providing this remote patient monitoring.
Yeah, I think that even if it was sort of forced usage, the fact that everyone in our data shows this as well, that seniors have absolutely used telemedicine at this point and are becoming more comfortable with it, even if it may not be always their preferred modality of care for certain situations, but they are understanding more how to use it and have more comfort with interacting in care. Libby, I'm wondering if you're hearing the same from the seniors that you're interacting with, a demand for or a rising comfort with telemedicine solutions.
Absolutely. I think, whatever makes it easier for the person to receive some health care, some advice. Certainly, as Eric was saying, it's nice to have somebody with the person when we're having these appointments, just because sometimes, hearing and that sort of thing, but it makes it so much easier. And that's, certainly huge. And I wanted to add a couple things along the lines of making things easier for a resident in long-term care. And I have to say, I just heard about one of the high-end long-term care facilities here in Orange County where they have implemented Alexa throughout the facility. So all a resident has to do is walk into the room and say, Alexa, can you turn on the lights? Alexa, can you turn up the heat? Alexa, can you turn on the music? And that kind of thing, that it's just easy. And it's what's funny is that really turning on the music has really resonated with the residents. But you know, that requires a lot. It requires the funding to do it. And I guess I wasn't surprised to hear that there was a full-time tech manager on the property, but you know, that's almost what you need. But the thing is, having things available and having the activity board lighted in a room, that's shown that there's been an increase in participation in activities. So anything that makes life easier for the resident and things that are accessible to them, that's going to make their lives better.
Yeah, absolutely. Great comments, Libby. And really, actually, that echoes the data we have of how everybody is using their smart speakers, which is as a speaker first, you use it to play music and then to ask some questions and then for some home control capabilities. But you know, we like to be entertained and uplifted. And so music's very powerful. So I'm not surprised to hear that. Thanks for sharing that. Libby makes a really good point, Naveen. I'd love to come back to you here about you almost needing a tech person on site. You know, some facilities may not be able to have that tech person on site. Can you talk at all about how you support properties and whether or not more properties are having technical staff on site, or how you support them in using technologies?
Yeah, you know, in many ways, it really depends on the size and scale, right? So you've got large parent organizations with hundreds of communities, right? And so they've got more of a corporate infrastructure and they can support IT more centralized, while there are smaller communities that may not have all of that infrastructure, but they may contract with a managed services organization that in essentially outsourcing your services so that you can provide that level of support that's really needed. Because the last thing you want to do is create additional frustration for the users of the technology when something's not working. But I think regardless of whether you follow a corporate model or you follow you scale to the point where you've got dedicated staff or you've outsourced it because it's more economical, at the heart of it is really for organizations to establish a clear, trusted partnership with those technology vendors that in many cases go beyond point-to-point solutions, but offer platforms and are able to provide the services that they really need. And that relationship has been built over time where they're accessible, whether it's through the support lines or whether it's more than just selling technology. I think the great companies and great partnerships do things like quarterly business review, do strategy review, help the organization understand, discover what their needs are, review their technology roadmap or overall what the strategy for that organization is, and you're partnering with it. I think this industry in many ways is really requesting that and asking for who are those that are going to emerge as true partners that can be trusted and help them and sort of co-create what that future is going to look like.
Yeah, and really create that confidence and that trust with that vendor. Well, so Naveen, I want to stick to you here, but change topics a little bit because we really wanted to talk about innovation. And we are also getting questions related to AI, for instance, and the use of AI. So I'd love to go to Naveen and then over to Aparna to maybe comment on what innovations you're seeing come down the pipe or just come out to market that you're really excited for, whether that be for residents or for properties.
Yeah, Jennifer, and once as a recovering technologist, right, I can get really excited about innovation and technology, but the reality is, to what end is it, right? Why should we really care about it? If you look at our health systems in 1970, 5% of our budget, our federal budget, was redirected towards healthcare, and today it's almost 1/3, right? And so that spend, seems to be going up disproportionately. And we've got to be able to innovate so as to be able to really bend the cost curve, right? And all of us, I think, Aparna that's in here and others that are on this call are all working towards that. If you look at the innovation landscape within senior living, and you go to Leading Age or Argentum or one of these conferences, and you see a lot of different vendors there, you can map them in different segments, right? Things around health and wellness. So you look at health apps, and we're talking about telehealth and remote patient monitoring and fitness trackers, to things around safety and security, around false prevention and false detection, sensors of various kinds that are there, to a lot of things being done on learning and ed tech as well for senior care. But what I'm personally excited about, I know there's a lot of conversation around generative AI, and we can talk about that as well. But even within the space, just the use of data to drive better outcomes. One of the things that we as an organization, given the reach that we have with the number of senior lives that we touch, is really creating a simple ML algorithm. It's a predictive algorithm that can give you a sense of understanding a wellness index at a community level, right? So think about a map with, if you've got 20, 30 communities, where you can begin to map them and create a color scheme to show green is healthy, yellow there's potential some challenges, and red there's potential problems there. And this is a combination of looking at what sort of activities and engagement are happening within the communities, for example, what sort of attendance is happening there, what sort of health and activities are happening there, and taking all of this and beginning to roll that up there. I think I liked, Libby was talking about Alexa. I think those are great smart devices that have been around for a decade or so. I think the next sort of wave or turn of that is more conversational AI, right? So where it's far more intelligent, it's more of a learning system where it begins to understand that you're not saying play music. It recognizes that each time you enter into the room, that's what you've done the last 10 times, and that's likely what you really need. Or simple things like even allowing operators to attract the right resident into the community, right? So if you look at the average length of stay is not a bell curve. It's essentially very skewed to the left, where almost 100 days, and within the first 90 or 100 days, if you don't have a resident that really begins to feel this is home, they're likely to move out. And so obviously that has direct implications on the economics for senior living operators. And so how can you do better sort of pattern matching to say the demographics, the interests, right, that are there of the people in there, so that this resident, so it's almost like an ideal customer profile, you're attracting that. There's a range of other intelligences that you can build in as well. The last one I will say, Jennifer, that I'm excited about is, I come from the sort of the EHR space, right, in long-term care. And obviously we talk about a lot of clinical records being exchanged, right? We allow these clinical records to follow the patient, right, as they move from care setting to care setting. And we use HREs for that. We use the Commonwealth Network for that. But we don't have a parallel for that within the senior care space when it comes to wellness and other dimensions that really are important to health outcomes. And I think there's an opportunity for interoperability. I think every tech vendor should make a commitment to play well within the ecosystem, that it provides sort of workflows that are end-to-end and provides and prevents repetition of data that needs to be entered in every system over and over and over again. And so I think there's a commitment there around all of these different things, from data to network to a rich partner ecosystem, and really working well together, keeping one thing in mind, and that's really the resident and their aging experience.
So much innovation going on. Love those comments. Aparna, over to you, and then maybe to Dr. Luster. And we also have another audience question in, so hopefully we'll have time to take that too before we close out. So Aparna, quick thoughts on the innovations that you're really excited about seeing come down the pipe.
Yeah, I think as we came into this market as an AI company, and we saw that, with all the innovation that's happening with fitness trackers, Fitbits, iWatches, etc., a lot of data that's being generated, is being captured and put in data lakes in the cloud systems around the world. One of the things that Zemply has focused on is creating a new class of AI, which we call as attentive AI. So there's generative AI that sort of depended on, a lot of content that was being generated through the blogs and the conversations that were happening in social media channels. But what we are focused on is a new class of new breed of AI technology that's focused on being focused on the attentiveness or assistiveness that is required to enable a person to live independently in their homes, and also take them to this point where they can self-manage in a very smart and intelligent way. Taking the example of Alexa that Libby brought up, we've actually connected our platform to Alexa, and we have a pilot running right now in a facility where we can detect certain behavior patterns inside a resident's living unit and then evoke Alexa intelligently. And we're using that to address what we call as fall prevention. For example, we have sensors on beds, and we know if someone got out of the bed, and especially in the night when they're trying to go, say, make a bathroom visit, we are now able to invoke Alexa and say, Alexa will wake up and say, "Hello, Mr. Jones. I noticed you got out of the bed. Please slow down, count up to 10, find your walker or your cane before you start moving to the bathroom." And then we track that entire round trip from the bed to bathroom back to bed. So we're that. So what I mean by attentive AI is, that's where the intelligence or the innovation is happening, especially on our side of the technology platform here. And to Naveen's point, yeah, how do we leverage existing technology and make them talk to each other? Because there's no need to reinvent the wheel, and we are very much sort of going with that approach of leveraging existing infrastructure, leveraging existing tools and technologies that are out there, and how do we bind these together in such a way that we're creating value where it's needed most. So and to that extent, we can take our platform to do any number of things, the goal being being able to smartly inject or intervene with situational advice. And suppose you have people with cognitive decline, for example, memory recall is an issue. So we want to be able to go back and say, right at the time when they need help most, we're able to invoke Alexa and give that piece of advice or information that they need. So we're starting to get them to become independent, self-manage, and take interest in their own health. And that's how we can prevent a lot of adverse events from happening. So that's an example of how AI can take this to the next level. The big issue being AI can help bring high quality care at scale in a very affordable way. So that's where we see the market and the trends emerging over a period of time, with more AI coming into the space.
Okay, thank you. Well, so I'll just have the last word to Dr. Luster here. And I think actually, Aparna, you and Naveen, you answered a little bit the audience question, which, what are your thoughts on monitoring and managing lifestyle activities and inactivities within the residence premise? And so that is happening today. Dr. Luster, you have your wearable and talked about remote patient monitoring as well. But if you want to close out on some last thoughts on the innovation that you're really excited about in just a minute, and then we'll be out of time, unfortunately. And you're on mute, actually, Dr. Luster, if you want to. There we go. We can hear you now.
Similar to our partner and Naveen. So we've started to look at this as a ecosystem, sort of say. And so even as a vendor and having a sensor, we had to do more. At the end of the day, you have to not only deliver one solution for our residents. So when we leverage Amazon Alexa, and we tap into fall detection and fall prediction, we also tie that into the smart lighting, because when Miss Johnson gets up at night and she's caught her bearings and she's going to the restroom, we tie that into the smart lighting so that she doesn't trip on the way to the restroom. But leveraging this entire ecosystem is extremely important. So when we set out to address falls within the seniors, we found out that our senior residents, they're all independent. They were reluctant to get sent to dependent care, and so they weren't reporting falls. But we developed solutions around the falls, but we had to do more. So we just completed a study with the NSF Brain. Not only do we look at balance, sway, and stability of the residents, but when we identify someone who has a degradation in their gait, we actually send them to Arizona State University, where we make them fall. And so it builds resilience and reaction time to falling. And they actually get more stable when we identify someone that's likely to start falling. So it's really about those ecosystems and using multiple technologies because, again, I think someone mentioned this on the board, on the panel here. Some of our residents that have started to fall have had dental issues. And so here we're looking at the problem and we're looking at it in one way, but we have to take a very holistic approach to look at other factors that may impact someone's degradation in balance with instability.
Great examples. Thank you all so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. You all bring, again, such a diversity of views of where you're working in the ecosystem. And so really fantastic discussion. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to remind everybody who's listening today, we do have research specifically on senior living available if you're looking for some insight and some intelligence on what's happening in this market and the senior's point of view. You can scan this QR code to learn more about that, as well as the multifamily point of view. This is a study that we did of residents living in multifamily apartments, facilities, etc., condo units, and understanding how they're using technology today, what they want out of their properties, so you can scan to learn more as well. So up next in the Smart Spaces series, we are back virtually on October 5th, talking about going from senior communities to the hospitality market. So thinking about the application of technologies, connectivity within hospitality. So certainly please join us there. Here is the information for all of the rest of the year. So we were in person and got to meet so many of you in April in Dallas. Next up is October 5th, hospitality market. And then on November 30th, we're talking all about the money and the business and making it work, investment and expansion in smart spaces, and the platforms that are enabling new services. Now, also, we welcome you to join the Connections event series, which has a virtual session happening this afternoon. And so if you're interested, you can hop over to the Connections US event that's also happening in Swap Card. If you need any help with registration, you can reach out to our team. And that topic today is focusing all on new era of home services and the services that are being built on top of smart home, consumer IoT technologies. So we invite you to join us there as well. If you're interested in sponsoring our events, in marketing services, in our research, or in speaking in one of our event series, you can reach out to our team. Thank you.